Well, as I continue to put these two Yellowstone Park stagecoaches together, I've been finding out that I have to modify some of the framework of the 8-passenger that I cut out 30 years ago, patterned after an older coach. Well, I'm putting it on a 8-passenger running gear that I think was a newer version, so I'm trying to make some modifications to it so it fits more correctly to the undercarriage. So I've got the driver's box side panels fitted up and I need to get those installed. But I'm kind of trying to go ahead in my mind and keep ahead so that I don't run into a problem. And I'm kind of suspecting once I get these front curves in place that I need to start putting the rib cage together. And I think I might have to make some more modifications in the rib cages I've already cut out. So I'm getting ready to put this top side panel on, but there's a couple of things that I have to pay attention to that come through this front brace. This square hole here accommodates a hook, and this is where the chain to the driver's footboard or the front boot attaches to. And then this round hole here contains a rod that goes back and then 45s back to the frame. So I have to remember where the location of these are. I'm going to have this at 6 1/4, and this one is at 9 3/4. And then where this hook is here, there's rivets that are put on each side to keep that from splitting. So I have to remember where these rivets are at as well. They are 2.5 inches apart, so 1 1/4 inches from the center of this hook. I have to remember those rivets are there just so I don't put a screw in the wrong place. So 6 1/4 down, this is where my square hole for my hook is going to be. I'm going to have a rivet on each side of it, and then 9 3/4 down is where the rod is going to go. So I want to make sure that my screws don't interfere with this anywhere. I'm going to come up 1 inch from my joint and come down 1 inch for this top screw. So I have 10 inches between. If I can come up maybe 3 inches, I can put a screw there. I can come down maybe 3 inches and put a screw there. And that leaves me at 3.5 between the two. So I think this is where I'm going to put my screws at in this side panel. So I want a screw here. I want a screw about there, and there, and there. not quite ready for this to be installed permanent yet, but I would like it in place so I can tell where my joint work needs to come, and this needs to be stepped down like I mentioned before. So if I can kind of hold it here, kind of a dry run deal again. Like this to come in pretty flush here. And put a screw there to hold that in place. Holding the top in place. And I've got two others that I'll put in eventually, but I'm going to put the middle one in. All these are catching the vertical frame to the driver's box. And then when these are installed for the final time, there'll be a series of screws that will take this side panel into this framework as well. So this is what was left of the driver's box framework and sideboards of this Stagecoach that I'm reproducing. I've been using another driver's box that I did off of a Stagecoach years ago because it is more intact than this one. But this is the right side framework, and then this was the rear framework as well off of this coach. So you can see we're coming a long ways. So now that I have this front curved frame in place, I need the ribs in here because that's going to tell me the seat height and the side height and where all this framework comes in and has to joint into this. So I brought part of an old seat that was the remnant of this Stagecoach. There's not much left, but it's going to help us solve the puzzle of how this rib cage needs to go. So I had some of this rib cage framework made on this 8-passenger, and I had pre-fitted these into the frame. Well, this is the cross frame for the brace underneath the seat, and I had one of these already cut out, and it's kind of semi-fitted into this rib cage. So I put it on this framework to kind of give me an idea of the width of the seat and the height of the seat. Well, the length of the seat frame here is 48 inches. Well, this old seat that came on the 11-passenger has the seat back and the irons attached to the framework of the seat itself, but underneath this framework is this cross frame. Well, this is the rear of the seat and this is the front of the seat. Well, the front of the seat has this cross frame on it as well, and you can see the joint work that is joined into the upright rib cage framing. And when I made the framework for these two coaches, remember I'm about an inch wider on this 11-passenger. On top of this frame I'm at 42 1/4. And the top of this framework of the 8-passenger, I'm 41 1/4. So I'm an inch narrower, but I thought it was interesting that when I put this seat frame off of the 11 next to the top seat frame off of this 8, they are both 48 inches. The end of this cross frame joint is still intact, and you can see it lines up with the rib cage frame. The ends are maybe a little punky and rotted away, but from joint to joint, these two are the same. So I did take my tape measure and I measured kind of at a cross angle to make sure that I am square. And how I have it set right now, the framing is square with the body. If I put the light on here, you can see the different angles of this rib cage frame as opposed to the angle of the main frame. Somehow these don't match up. And that's one of the things that was just kind of gnawing in my head. If we have different widths, and I anticipated kind of that the seats would be the same because they seat 3 people each, that the width would be the same. But if the body widths are different, then it seems like I'm going to have my rib cage to be a little different. But the ribs that I have to this frame here, I really don't like how they fit as well. I may have to redesign these just a little bit in the curve to match my main frame and come up to this width. And then they're only an inch difference to the 11 passenger, but they're going to be a little bit different as well. So I may not be able to use this framework. I may have to make new for both to accommodate the same seat widths. And on this 11 passenger coach, I don't have any of that rib cage left anyway. The main frames were there and remnants of the part of the seats, but nothing to connect the two. So I would have to draw this out anyway. And so I'm going to do it for this one, and I think I'm going to end up doing it for that 8 as well. So I've been doing some playing and drawing out of possible rib cage scenarios with seat widths compared to the body widths. And this is what I've come up with. So this first one to the right is my 11 passenger. So if I have a seat width on the frame that is 48 inches, and the body width is 42 1/4, I end up with 5 3/4 of an inch difference between my frame width and my seat width. So take half of that per side. I have 2 7/8 leaning out of the top from my framework. So this is the picture that I would have of my framework for the rib cage. Now the bottom angle of my main frame is 21 degrees. And if I come up to the top, I measured the angle of the joint on this cross frame of the old 11 one, and this one comes out at 7 degrees. So if I put these in at 7 degrees and the main frame angle at 21 degrees, this is the configuration that I came up with for a rib cage frame that will work on this 11 passenger. Now when I change over to the 8 passenger, because I am an inch narrower on the frame, instead of 5 3/4, I have 6 3/4 difference between my main frame and my seat frame. So half of that 6 3/4 on each side is 3 3/8 that this has to lean out because I'm adding another ½ inch per side. So in order to get this to work, I have to have 9 degrees angle at the top. And if I do my same 21, which is the angle on the frame as it is, it actually doesn't give me enough angle to get any kind of curve into this frame. I would have to increase that to 25 degrees in order to get an angle that comes out to accommodate this 3 3/8 extra width. So I end up actually with a straighter side on the 8 passenger if I want to remain at that 48-inch seat width. So the question is, do I want to remain at the 48 seat width and have a straighter side, or should I make it the same as the 11 passenger and have a traditional curved side panel? And I think what I've come down to is the 11 passenger needs to be a 48 inch, but in order to use this same pattern and not have to change the angle from 21 degrees to 25 degrees on my main frame, I could use this same frame if I change from 48 inches to 47 inches. Then my side panels will be the same. And will it be that much difference in 1 inch in seat width? I'm kind of leaning toward concluding that it won't. So it could seem like it is one of those situations that I would say it's one of those duh moments, that if the main frame is an inch narrower, then the seat frame should be an inch narrower. But the evidence from having this cross frame for the seat cut out 30 years ago would say that off of that pattern, that seat frame was 48 inches. If I didn't have that, I'd say, well, yeah, naturally, if the frame is narrower, then the seat frame has to be narrower. But I still think that's the best way to go. And the only one that's going to know about it is me and you. So on the 8-passenger, these were the rib pieces that I had made, and see how they don't fit here well at all. It's just not quite the right angle. And this is the pattern that I drew out and I made my pattern from. And this is going to fit more correctly. So I'm going to prop this cross frame for the seat up in this position. And I have this squared up, so I'm going to remove this frame and take my pattern and see if I have it at the correct angle. And right there, I'd say maybe I'm a little too steep. I'm an inch narrower, and I only want it to be a ½ inch narrower. So I need to adjust this angle just a fuzz. That's going to be much closer. I'm at about 7/16, so that'll work. I'll have to adjust each of these probably individually anyway, but I think that's going to work a little better. And then on my 11-passenger, the angle still fits well there, and since we're an inch wider on the frame, I'll be an inch wider on the seat base also. So this is going to be my pattern for both. Well, this is one thing about making these videos. I get to share what I go through pretty consistently, making these little discoveries and having to make these adjustments. But I think we've got this kind of tuned down to where they're going to work on both coaches. Appreciate you coming along. Thanks for watching.